This show is being sponsored in part by Precision Self-Storage. Need storage? Call Precision Self-Storage, 617-625-1000, located at 460 Somerville Avenue in Somerville, Massachusetts. 50% off first month's rent along with a free lock, 617-625-1000.
Hi, I'm Jean Flanagan from Somerville Producers Group, and today I'm going to be offering you a show that is about back care and exercises. We're going to open the show with T.K. Kennedy, and she's an athletic trainer at Harvard, and she's going to talk a little bit about back anatomy and some of the red flags of back pain, the kind of back pain that you really want to go see a doctor, chiropractor, osteopath about. So she's going to talk about that. Then we're going to have some subjects come in, and they're going to do some exercises. I'm going to teach them how to do some very basic exercises that will really help back pain at any level. So TK, go ahead.
Thank you, Jean. Well, we have several subjects tonight, several subjects full of bones. So what I'd like to do is start off with this particular group of bones here. And this is a human vertebral column and the human pelvis. And the human vertebral column has a number of bones called vertebrae stacked on top of one another. And these vertebrae, there are 7 cervical vertebrae. So the cervical vertebrae are the vertebrae in your neck. And then we have 12 thoracic vertebrae. And basically what we're going to talk about today are the last 5 vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae, the heavier, bigger, thicker, weight-bearing vertebrae that really give stability to the whole spinal column. And the last bone down here is a very interesting bone called the sacrum. And the sacrum is actually 5 fused bones. And the sacrum is a very important member of this whole spinal column, and we will talk a little bit about the sacrum also. This is the pelvis, and this is where the vertebral column sits in between, and is very important because there's a number of very important muscles that are attached there. And now I think we're going to take a walk over to Bobby, and we're going to show you how Bobby's bones move. This is Bobby, and Bobby, the muscles in the front are, there's a group of muscles called the rectus abdominis, and this is the large group of muscles that you see, and especially with bodybuilders are all ripped and everything. That is the rectus abdominis muscle, and the rectus abdominis starts up here on these, it's actually cartilage, it's not really rib at that point in time. And then it goes all the way down to the symphysis pubis. There's also 2 other anterior muscles we need to worry about, the internal and the external obliques on Bobby. And they come in here, and they also add stability to the front part of the abdominal wall. And they basically help you build up pressure so that you can keep upright. There is also a muscle that runs from your femur, this bone right here, of your upper leg, and it runs up in through here and it inserts on your spine. And that muscle is called the psoas. The psoas muscle flexes your leg, and it also can pull your front part of your spinal column forward so that you can have some problems if it's very tight. Now, turning Bobby around very gently. Bobby's old. Turning Bobby around, we see that there is a curve in the spine. And this curve in the spine is called lordosis. And this lordotic curve is natural. And these curves in the spine contribute to the body's ability to absorb shock when you're walking or you're running, and also just contribute to the stability of the spine. The muscles, there's a group of muscles that run on either side of the spine all the way up and down, and as a group we call them the erector spinae muscles. The erector spinae muscles also help rotate the spine right and rotate the spine left. There is also a large muscle group that runs from the lower part of the ribs down to the top of the iliac crest. That's part of your hip here. And that is called the quadratus lumborum. The quadratus lumborum also adds stability to the whole lower part of the back. Now these are just some of the muscles. There are also other muscles that help move the back, including your lat muscles, which are also very large muscles that insert into the connective tissue into your lower back. Now, if you will notice on Bobby, I'm going to move Bobby around a little bit here, the white substances that are in between the vertebrae are called intervertebral discs. And intervertebral discs are basically a cushion which absorbs shock between the vertebrae. Now, having said that, sometimes you can experience a twisting in your low back, and that twisting effect in your low back can lead to injuries to the nerve itself or to the intervertebral disc. When the disc, if you think of the disc, Dunkin' Donuts just had a contest for the most popular donut, and I think the most popular donut was the Boston Cream. And if you think of the intervertebral disc as a Boston Cream donut, you can see that if you smush the back part of the Boston Cream donut, then the cream moves to the front. Or if you smush is a technical term, if you smush the front part of the Boston Cream donut, then the cream goes to the back. Having said that, the disc moves like that, forward and backward, with all the little cream inside moving forward and backward as you're, sitting, standing, walking around. But when you turn and you twist, that places an abnormal force on that disc. And, this is what happens when you place an abnormal force on that disc. What happens is a little part of it pops out. And this little part that pops out is called a herniation. And that herniation can press on some nerves that run through there. Now, in contrast to Bobby, who doesn't have any nerves anymore, this particular model still has some nerves. These little yellow things coming out represent the spinal nerves. And if you have a ruptured disc, that little spot right there, you can have pressure against these spinal nerves. And it's that pressure that creates some symptoms that we are going to talk briefly about right now, what I call the red flags. I think 90% of Americans have back pain, so at one point in time in their life. If that is true, then we must determine what is serious back pain, what is non-serious back pain. When do you need to see your doctor? Well, the red flags are these. If you have pain that starts in your back and goes all the way down your legs to your feet, that type of pain, or that radiating pain, can be caused from a rupture of the disc or pressure against this little muscle right in here, which we didn't talk about yet, called the piriformis muscle. But radiating pain down to your feet is a red flag. You want to see your doctor if you have that kind of pain. If you have bladder control problems after a back injury, you want to see your doctor about it. If you have difficulty walking on your heels, or walking on your toes, or walking up and down stairs, that sort of inability needs to be discussed with your doctor, because it can be from some very serious injuries to your low back, including injury to the nerves, injury to the discs, or injury to the bone itself. Especially in younger people, if you have a defect in one of these bones, it can cause the vertebrae to slip on one another. It's called spondylolisthesis, and that condition can create tremendous pressure against the nerve. So you want to make sure that if you have this intractable pain in your back, just doesn't go away no matter what you do. If you have pain going all the way down to your toes, inability to walk on your toes, inability to walk on your heels, that you get your pain professionally evaluated, starting off with your own family physician, who will probably refer you to a specialist, either an orthopedic specialist or a chiropractor, or an osteopath. Those are the people who usually deal with the bones. And I believe Jean is going to now discuss some of the exercises that utilize these muscles we just spoke about.
Thank you, TK. Thank you. That was very informative. What we're going to do now is we're going to roll a tape that shows some basic stretching routine that I teach as a standard practice. It's mostly sitting on the floor. It's designed to stretch the low back and the legs, and we're going to let that tape roll, and then we'll come back to some subjects doing some exercises.
We're doing stretching today for the back and legs. We're going to begin with a diamond stretch, sitting on the floor, putting the feet together with the knees pointed out. Leaning forward towards your feet. Don't pull your feet too close to your body. How far forward you lean is very determined by your own flexibility. Then we're going to turn and face one knee. Lean towards that knee. You'll be stretching the opposite side of the back. Don't let your hip come up off the floor as you lean to one side. The hamstring muscle is in the upper back of the leg. So we're going to stretch the leg out straight, making sure that knee stays straight. Beginning with the foot relaxed, a fairly gentle stretch. Then we're flexing the foot up, intensifies the stretch behind the knee, and then relaxing the foot again. We find that we can lean further forward once the foot's been relaxed the second time. If you find this stretch particularly difficult to do, then you may need to sit on a pillow and elevate your body. Give yourself a little bit more room for the stretch. Whether you can reach your toes or not is not an important point in this stretch. Make sure your knee stays straight all the way through this entire stretch. Piriformis muscle is a small muscle in the buttocks. And what we're going to do is bring the foot close to the hip on the opposite side of the body and hug the knee. Once you feel that stretch, then by turning the body and putting your hand behind you, you can intensify the stretch. The piriformis muscle is very related to back pain. Well, it's not in the back. When the piriformis muscle is tight, we tend to change our position of our bodies as we walk and move. In this stretch, we're going to stretch the quadriceps, the front upper thigh muscle. We want to flatten the back out and press the hips forward till we feel a stretch in the front of the upper thigh. We need to be careful about our knees on this stretch. You may need to put a pillow underneath your knee. We're going to move to the calf stretch. We have two muscles in the calf. First muscle crosses the knee joint, so we're going to keep our knee straight, bend forward, flexing that foot, keep the back heel on the ground, back knee straight. We then change the position, bend the back knee, and increase the stretch to the back of the heel. We have two muscles in the calf. So the first part of this stretch, we're doing a straight leg, so it's behind the knee. Then we're bending the knee, so we feel the stretch behind the ankle. And that concludes our stretches for today.
Welcome back. And now we're going to do some basic exercises, and I have here Patrick with me. And Patrick, what do you do for exercise in general?
I'm pretty active, so I commute on my bike.
From Newton to
Charlestown.
Charlestown,
yeah.
so it's not a small commute.
So I ride, yeah, that's about 10 miles or so. For lunch hour, I'm either running, swimming, or stretching. So
good.
So something every day.
Something every day.
Yeah.
So do you have back pain?
No.
No, because the exercises. But what we're going to do, I'm going to teach them some, these are really basic exercises. You don't have to be at any particular fitness level to do these exercises. And Patrick hasn't learned them, so we're going to teach them to him, and we'll see how many he knows. So what we're going to deal with initially, we're going to basically start by dealing with the pelvis and the directions that it moves in. So what we're going to do, we're going to just, while you're sitting, you can just rock your hips from side to side. Not your body, you're going to hold your shoulders still and just move your hips from side to side. Right, just that.
Okay.
Yep. And then we're going to do a pelvic tilt. And I'm going to have you stand up and actually step down in the front and stand here. And to do for a pelvic tilt, what you're going to do is you're going to press your low back and actually turn sideways a little bit. There you go. Okay. You're going to press your low back against my hand.
Yeah.
Right, and then you're going to pull it away from my hand, right? But without leaning, so you're going to soften your knees up.
All right.
Bend your knees just a little bit, right? And now you're going to press your pelvis, and then pull it away. That's a pelvic tilt. Now go in the other direction, and you're going to come, and that's coming out of a pelvic tilt. So pelvic tilt is flattening the lumbar spine. So go ahead, do a pelvic tilt. That's a pelvic tilt, and then we're coming out of a pelvic tilt, creating more lordosis, more arch in the small of the back. And if you stand, now stand with your knees locked.
Okay.
Just lock your knees. Now, you'll notice when his knees are locked, he has to have a lot of lordosis in the low back. We can't do a pelvic tilt if our knees are locked out. So try to do a pelvic tilt. And now let your knees, and now you can do a pelvic tilt.
Yeah.
So if we're standing with our knees locked all the time, then our back is going to take up extra stress and extra pain. So we really want to work at letting the knees be soft and letting the body weight stay just slightly to the heels. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better body posture. So we want to be aware of that. To work on that a little bit, we're going to take this giant pink ball. I'm going to let you have a seat on that.
Just sit, facing the same way?
Sure, you can face the same way. Okay, now, actually, let's get you a little further away from there, right there. That's good. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to rock your hips from side to side.
Do this rocking.
Yep, this rocking.
Okay.
Right, so now we see how much motion the hips really can take up.
Okay.
And they have a lot of motion in them. And now you're going to do front to back with your hips, so you're going to do a pelvic tilt. So you're in a pelvic tilt, and then you're coming out of a pelvic tilt.
So this
and that's out of a pelvic tilt. It's the top of the pelvis that's going backwards when we talk about being in a pelvic tilt. So you're in a pelvic tilt in this position, and you come out of a pelvic tilt in that position. Okay, now relax into sort of a neutral, we have a neutral space that's neither of them. But one of the things with back pain that we want to really be careful of is that when the back gets tight, we stop moving it from side to side or from front to back. And then the pain gets into a smaller space. So we keep wanting to take, and even if our back is in pain, we want to make sure we're keeping it moving in its maximum range of motion. And that'll help control the pain for when it's in less, movement. So what we're going to do one balance exercise here. It's actually not too hard to sit on a ball. It's a great exercise. It's really good to do, and you can buy these balls at any of the sporting goods stores now. They're actually fairly common, and they're not terribly expensive. But they're great for if you sit at your computer, if you're going to sit for half an hour on a television show. It really makes the back, your tendency is to keep moving the back, and that's a really good thing for the back to do. The problem with most of our things, we just are stationary too long. So we sit in the back, we sit too long, we stand too long. Okay, we're going to move over to the table and have Patrick do some lying down exercises. So let's get you over there.
You just want me to lie down on my back?
Yep. Come with your head up on this end. So if we're in back pain, then what we want to do, we want to lie down and make sure the knees are bent. By bending the knees, we end up with the back being flat on the bench. So we're going to have that. And what we're going to do is we can do a pelvic tilt from the same program, from the same position. So no matter what position the body's in, we can do a pelvic tilt. So what you're going to do is you're going to press the small of your back down into the floor, and then you're going to lift it up off the floor so we can get this arch, and then press the arch down and into a pelvic tilt. So it's a great way to learn a pelvic tilt because you have the pressure of something against your back.
Right, yeah.
So it's easier to feel a pelvic tilt.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to move into what's called a bridge. And the bridge is actually continuing a pelvic tilt, continuing to roll that spine until your hips actually come off the ground. Okay? So, and if you go too high, you'll start to arch your back again. So there's a point where you can feel that you're still in a pelvic tilt. So what I want you to do is to roll your hips in the other way in a pelvic tilt and come up. Now keep rolling them so that they come off the ground. Not your feet, keep your feet on the ground.
Okay.
Right, just that.
Okay.
Okay, so now your hips have lifted off the ground. So we've got, and if you go higher, then the back flattens out again, and we don't want the back to flatten out. So we want to stay down in this position, and you can feel your quads stretch.
Right, they're pulling.
And now down onto the ground, right? So we're stretching the quads, and we're getting a nice stretch into the low back. So that's the use of that exercise. Even if you're in back pain, it's a very gentle exercise for the back. These exercises aren't about strengthening the back. They're not about working hard on the back. Okay, what I want you to do now, we're going to do a reverse twists. And so I'm going to have you put your feet tight together. No, slide them out just a little bit. Now you're going to keep your feet as one unit. Okay? So you're going to come up on the side of your foot. You're going to bring your knees over to one side, and this foot's going to travel on top of the other one.
All right.
Okay? So we're putting a twist in the low back by having the feet be connected to each other and flat on the floor. We're not stressing the back. This isn't a hard exercise to do, and you only go over as far as your back can comfortably handle. Then you go to the other side. Right. And you have a pretty flexible back. So how far your knees go completely depends on how flexible your back is. So I'm going to have you sit up, and we're going to stretch those legs out in front of you. We'll see how flexible your hamstrings are.
Okay.
So the stretch that we did that you saw in the show, in the little video that you just saw, you have one knee bent, and you let that knee come out to the side, right? And you're going to stretch towards your straight leg. Stretch towards that toe. Out? Yeah, just stretch that out. So Patrick's flexible. And quite exceptionally flexible. Men tend to be less flexible than women, so we can see how active Patrick is. Now back off this stretch a little. You'll find a lot of people, this is the limit of their stretch. It's very common. So we need to make sure that we have the flexibility in the hamstring, which is in the back of the leg, and that connects up, attaches to the back. So all of that makes a difference on the that. What I want you to do now is I want you to get on your hands and knees.
Flip around.
Flip around.
Okay.
You're going to get on your hands and knees. And guess what exercise we're going to start with?
Pelvic tilt.
There you go. Okay, let's see do it. Now that you've learned it three times, let's see number 4. Okay? This is a cat and the camel, very common exercise for, keep going, just keep that nice, just make it a nice continuous motion. Yeah. So this is a very common exercise physical therapists will teach to learn to really keep that back stretched out. Okay, now come to neutral. What I want you to do now is I want you to do what I call tail wagging, which is if you had a tail, it would wag. So you're going to swing your hips to one side and then to the other side. Right. It's just a side-to-side motion with the hips. Don't come in and out of a tilt. Just
right.
a nice side-to-side motion. There you go.
Okay.
They're tail wagging. It feels like tail wagging, doesn't
It
it?
does.
Okay, and stop. Now, next exercise we're going to do is called the pointer. And what you're going to do is you're going to extend. This is a little more difficult exercise to do for actually strengthening the low back. And I'm going to have Patrick demonstrate it, and then the video we'll see Bobby demonstrate it. Okay, you're going to extend one arm out.
One arm out.
And then the opposite leg is going to extend out behind you.
Okay.
So now you're balanced on 2 points. You have to use your abdominal muscles and the back muscles to hold the legs up and to support the spine. So we don't want the spine to collapse. And now you're going to change. And opposite arm and leg again. Keep those hips level. There you go. So, dun, 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 dun. And if you want to do a little more challenging, you can close your eyes.
Close my eyes.
Close your eyes. Vision is a big part of balance. So when you really can feel balance exercises, and when you know the exercise really well, and you can stop. Good. When you know the exercise really well, what you can do then is you can then close your eyes and do the exercise, and there's a whole new level of challenge to it. So the last exercise I'm going to have you do is the piriformis exercise. And I need you to walk yourself up to the end of the mat. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring your knees together. You're going to swing your feet over to one side. Pick a side. You're going to take that outside leg, and you're going to bring it back behind you, and you're going to slide it back. And just straighten it out, and you slide it back, and slide your whole body back.
All right.
Okay, and stop there, because you're starting to twist your hips. So where do you feel that?
In my lower hip.
Right there.
Right there, yep.
Okay, this is the piriformis muscle, and it's a very specific stretch. You can definitely feel that stretch. And come on up again. And let's see if you can. This is a hard exercise to remember because you have to twist your body in a lot of different ways. So go ahead. Let's see if you can do it in the other direction.
Do it in the other direction. This way.
Yeah.
And then cross over.
And you cross over.
And then come down.
And then you come down. So we've got. And if you have bad knees, then you have to modify this exercise a little bit. And if you do it on a bed instead of on the floor or a mat, then it'll be better for the knees. So that's a good way to modify that exercise. Okay, Patrick, come on up. And you can have a seat.
Wow, that was a good one.
That was a new stretch for you, huh?
Yep, haven't done that one before.
Good. Okay, we're going to go now to the video with Bobby Watson doing the pointer stretch.
Bobby's demonstrating today a back exercise called the pointer. Begin on your hands and knees. Extend one arm and the opposite leg. Hold it for 10 seconds. Come back to your hands and knees and extend the other arm and opposite leg. This requires some balance, but builds back strength and stability in the spine. Next exercise Bobby's going to do is leg extension. You'll notice that the knees are together and not in line with the feet. So this is not a good way to do this exercise. We use too much outer thigh. We don't use enough inner thigh. You get imbalances in the leg. By doing this exercise with a ball between your knees, we line the leg correctly and we increase the body's use of the inner thigh. You can see the foot and the knee lined up. The kneecap will therefore correctly move at the knee joint.
So I hope you enjoyed watching Bobby Watson do the pointer exercise. And he also did some leg extensions, which we're going to talk about with a human subject, with a live human subject.
Thanks,
so, well, Bobby, this is Bob, as opposed to Bobby Watson. This is Bob, and he's going to help us do some exercises now. So we've done primarily light stretching. That was the exercises that we finished with Patrick. And now these exercises, if you can do all of those stretching exercises, then your body's ready to do some of these other exercises that are a little more difficult. We're going to start with the most basic one, which is squats. Ah, I know. So Bob, what I'm going to ask you to do is stand up.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, okay, now you're standing. And you know what you get to do? You get to sit down in the chair.
Okay.
I know it's tough, but you know. So go ahead, stand up again. And sit down. And stand up. And sit down. Okay, squats, basic squats. And you can sit down, you can stay seated now. Okay, so these are squats, and what the reason I have people do them with the chair is because you tend to then think about your butt going behind you and sitting on the chair.
Ah, so it's
Okay,
posture.
so stand up and stand on the floor.
Okay.
And I just want you to do squats now. Just think in terms of doing a squat.
So think with the chair, or don't think of anything.
Just don't think of anything. Okay? So what we see is we see the knees going out over the toes and stop. Good. So we want two things. We want your feet to stay flat on the floor.
Okay.
Okay? So that's going to determine how far down you can go. And your knees stay more stationary, right? So you'll notice that the knees now aren't sliding forward as far as they were sliding forward before. So now you're thinking about sitting in a chair.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And stop. Good. Good. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Now if we want to make it a little more strenuous, you get to sit on this ball bump.
Okay. Bingo.
Okay. I want you to put your feet a little closer together.
Okay.
Okay. Now you're going to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to bounce off the ball back to standing.
Okay, here we go.
Okay? The ball will support you. It's okay. Now I have to hold on to the ball. This isn't about freestanding. So keep going. Just do a couple more. Nice. Really let the ball push you back to standing.
Okay.
And up. Yeah.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Without somebody holding on to the ball. And one more.
Okay, this is fun.
Okay, good. Now, do you feel that?
Oh,
Feel
yeah.
that in your quads?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
A little bit?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got another way to do squats. Yeah. See, now that was with your knees forward.
Yeah.
So that
different.
you flunked that. That was a bad squat.
I need
Okay.
the ball.
Okay. So those are some basic squats using the quads, which are the muscles on the front of the leg, using the hamstrings, the muscles on the back of the leg. So we're going to go to the exercise that you just saw Bobby Watson doing with leg extension, and we're going to be working the quads again with the leg extension. So what I want you to do, Bob, is I just want you to put your knees together.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to kick one foot straight out, because he didn't see this video, so he doesn't know what Bobby Watson did. Okay. We have 4 muscles in the quad, and so we want to make sure that the outer muscle doesn't do too much of the work and make sure that the inner muscle does more of the work. So what we're going to do is put this ball between your knees.
Okay.
And you can just squeeze it there. And now do the same exercise. Feels different.
Oh, for sure.
So where do you feel it now?
Well, I feel more like in here
That's right. That's what we're
Because
trying
of-
to do.
because of pressing them together.
Right. Because of the ball, we're getting more and stop. And what this exercise does, the reason we're trying to do this is because this exercise gets this muscle part of the quad. There's 4 muscles in the quad. That's why it has its name. And the vastus medialis. And what that muscle does is pull the kneecap correctly across the joint as you bend it and extend it. So if we're using this muscle more, we get less knee pain. So it's a direct result of knee pain. So what I'm going to have you do now is I'm going to have you stand back down on the floor.
Okay.
And you can use that ball between your knees again. And you're going to do squats again. And I want you to feel that now the squats, you can feel more of the inner thigh working. And you'll see a lot of people will do squats and their knees will tend to collapse together. And what we're getting here is so that the knees travel independent of each other and they're aiming directly over the feet. So now do the squats without the ball and really think about keeping the knees pointed over your feet. And you can feel how much work that...
It feels like you have to press in.
Yeah, but it's pressing in without collapsing in, and there's a big difference. What you'll see people doing is you'll see people doing a squat so that their knees fall together.
Oh, like this.
Right. So what we're trying to do is keep the knees so that they're going straight line. So there's a little fine line in there, and it can be a little tough sometimes. Okay. Bob flies on airplanes a lot, so come on over here and sit down, Bob. We're going to take a break from the hard exercise that he's been doing. Okay, but we're sitting in an airplane and we get back pain and you've got 6 hours of flying left to do.
At least 6, yeah.
And when you came back on Tuesday?
Yeah, from Germany. It was 2 airplanes, or actually Switzerland, I think it was.
Yeah. Too many airplanes.
Too many.
And of course, we all know how small the seats are on airplanes, and they're getting smaller by the day. So, well, a lot of my clients that I work with ask me when they're going on an airplane what to do about back pain on an airplane. So I just want to do a quick little couple of very simple. These are so simple they feel like they shouldn't even make a difference. But part of the problem with back pain is that we have the imbalance of what muscle is stressed and what muscle is relaxed. So what happens is the wrong muscles start to get tight. And so what we're trying to do here is a very simple task of rebalancing which muscle has the correct tension in it. So you're just going to start by putting your hand on top of one knee.
Okay.
So we're sitting in this cramped little airplane. And you're just going to lift your knee up just slightly off the floor with a little bit of pressure down on your hand. And then you let it relax. And then you put your hand on the outside of your knee. And you're just going to press to the outside. You don't even have to lift your foot off the floor. You just press against your hand. And you're going to count to 10. And then you're going to stop. And then you're going to press to the inside and count to 10. It's not hard pressure. It's just what you can handle, what you can press in. And then you can just repeat the same thing on the other side. And what you'll find is, in fact, that now your back feels different. And you probably haven't been sitting long enough to notice that, but it'll feel different.
Well, I can notice the adjustment. It seems like it's mostly lower back and
in the sacrum.
Yeah,
has a lot of adjustment way down in the sacrum that takes away some of those things that start to add up as you've been on a plane for a while.
Well, that's really true, Gene, because you notice that you kind of slouch or you're sleeping and you're going like this, and there's a lot of adjustments.
Right. Yeah. Right. So those are some really basic plane exercises. So we're going to move you over now to the mat and do some exercises over there. Okay, you're going to start by lying on your stomach. Okay, we've been talking a lot about stretching the back by sitting and leaning forward and stretching the back. We're going to talk about stretching the back in the other direction now. So we're going to do what's known as a cobra, which in yoga, and you're going to just put your hands right under your shoulders, and you're just gently going to press your shoulders up off the floor. And you go to where it's comfortable and come down just a little bit more, actually. Come down just a little bit. I want without your hips off the floor. So what we've got this back extended in the opposite direction. So TK was talking about the lumbar spine, the discs being, and you can come down, Bob. I don't need to leave you up there all day. So that ruptured discs are caused by the lumbar spine squeezing the center of the disc out. So what we're doing here is we're actually reversing the pressure so that the lumbar spine can curve in the other direction. But we're not using the back to do it. We're using the arms to do it. So we're not stressing the back. And do it again, Bob. And what you can feel is the inside of the spine is actually stretching. And you can usually feel that sort of the back and behind the stomach is doing the stretching. And you can feel that a little bit. Good. And down. Good. While Bob's still on his stomach, what I want to do is I want to go over a quad stretch. The quad, again, we talked about the quad a little bit. It's this muscle on the front. And then it connects into that iliopsoas that goes up inside the pelvis that TK mentioned. And that muscle, if that muscle's tight, it forces us to stay in that lordosis and not get into an appropriate pelvic tilt. So what we're going to do now is relax your foot for a minute. We're just going to have Bob, I want you to make sure your hips stay flat on the floor, and we're going to bend his knee. Let me get your knees straightened out a little bit. Okay, we're going to bend the knee. Now as we bend the knee, what we'll tend to see is we'll tend to see the hip come up. Okay? So let's bend the other one. Let's see so we see this hip flex up a little bit. So the quad's a little tight. We got to loosen that quad up a little bit. So what I want you to do, Bob, without letting your hip lift off the floor, I want you to lift your knee off the floor. Yep, and down. Right. So we're using the hamstring, we're using the glutes in the middle of the butt, and lift your knee up and down. Right. And so we want to keep that knee bent. We're putting that quad on a full stretch. And it feels like it's so limited, and you can only lift your knee about a ½ inch off the floor. Nope. Now, see, now you're lifting your hip to do that. Yeah, there you go. And that is a correct amount of lift. That really is the amount of lift you can do. Good. And stop. Okay, now I'm going to have you roll over on your back. We're going to get into the old standby. This is the one you all know so well, and you hear all sorts of things about. Bob, I'm going to have you do a sit-up.
Without bringing
Go ahead.
just regular old.
Just a good old-fashioned sit-up.
Okay.
Okay, good. Now you can lie down again. It's the only one you're going to do of those. That's the traditional sit-up. That's the sit-up the way we've known it for years. Now you're going to bend your knees. And by bending his knees, his back gets to flatten out. A full sit-up uses those iliopsoas that we just finished working on trying to stretch. So we've modified it, the fitness world, certainly not me, have modified it in this point in time, and that's how we get to the crunch. A crunch isolates the abdominals. Abdominals start up in the ribs, go down to the pubic symphysis. And so what I want you to do is I want you to put your hands behind your head and do a crunch for me. Right. Now don't come up too high, because then you start using your hip flexors again. Right. And down. Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do now when you're doing a crunch is I'm going to ask you to exhale before you start the crunch, and exhale right through the whole motion. Right. And down. And again. Now tell me what you can feel different on that.
I feel like a line going right down through here.
Yeah, it's more it isolates the movement better.
Mm-hmm.
And can you feel lower abdominals better?
Yeah, you can feel it all the way going down more.
So we're trying to get the muscles below the belly button to do more work, because the abdominals up here at the top actually aren't supporting the low back as much as the lower abdominals are, and those obliques that we're going to do a little bit more work with. So we want our exercises to take our low back. So what I want you to do now, we're going to make the exercises a little more difficult. You're going to pick your knees up off the floor, and you're going to do the same exercise with your knees up off the floor. And down, and again, and down, right, and stop. Good. Good. And feet down. Okay? So they get progressively more difficult as we get less of our body weight on the floor. So they hard enough yet?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay. I'm going to have you put your feet straight up in the air. Well, as straight as they get, right, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad, not bad. Okay, let your hips, let's just, yeah. You're going to do a crunch again. Go ahead. I think we're getting there. Definitely getting there now. So as we change the feet, we get a harder exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So we can pull the crunch all the way back to something that's even simpler than what we started with, because you started with your hands behind your head. So the simplest way we can do a crunch, if your back is still sore, if you're really only just getting started doing this, is put your hands on your thighs. And you're going to slide your hands up to your knees. And then come back down again. Right? And you really use the fact that hitting the top of your knees means you've done a full crunch. So this one has a nice little measure in it, so you can figure out if you've really mastered this, then you can start to move your hands. You can bring your hands to your chest, and then you can bring your hands in behind your head and get those progressively harder. So we're going to go into reverse twists now. You saw Patrick did a reverse twist. We'll have you duplicate the same one, and then we'll show you again how to make it progressively more difficult. So bring your feet together. You're going to keep them on the ground, and they're going to travel as a unit, so only the outside of one foot stays on the ground. So bring your knees over to one side, right? A little less flexibility than Patrick had. I want you to keep your shoulder on the ground, keep most of these ribs on the ground, so this is about as far as your back can go in this exercise. And now you're going to go to the other side. Right. Oh, a little more rotation on this side. So this is very gentle on the back. Okay, now what you're going to do, come back to center. Now we're going to do the same sequence that we did. We won't get as far, but we're going to do the same sequence we did with the crunches. So you can pick your feet up off the floor. Now you're going to do the same side-to-side motion. Okay? And you have to make sure you don't fall off the table. That'd be a good thing. And the other side. Right, and come back this way. Right. Keep working at it a little bit. Right. A lot more work.
The important thing is to keep the shoulders
Yep. Shoulders have to stay down and feet down. If your shoulders don't stay down, what happens is the spine twists through the whole range of motion. So we don't want the twist to travel all the way up the spine. We want it to stay specifically down at the bottom. Okay. So we're trying to keep the rib cage pretty stationary. Okay. So we need to, and you should feel the work across the top of the pelvis. That's pretty much a nice even motion across the pelvis is what you should be feeling. Okay? Okay. Next exercise I'm going to have you do, we call footsteps on the ceiling. And I have a client who calls it nightmares on the ceiling. We're getting progressively more difficult in our exercises. So you need to be aware of whether your back feels comfortable doing some of these or not. You have to have some hamstring flexibility for this exercise too. Go ahead, stick your feet up in the air. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to reach one foot up towards the ceiling, so you're going to lift that hip, and then the other one, and then the other one, right. Keep your shoulders on the floor. Don't overreach, just towards the ceiling, just up to the ceiling. Yeah. So you get a lot of hip motion, and it takes a lot of work. And stop, and put your feet down. Good. So you feel that in your abdominals again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Feel it. Yeah.
Not much question about that one. Okay, now, I call this one double footsteps on the ceiling, so think about what that one's going to be. Ooh, this is a hard one. Go ahead. Feet up in the air. Yep, and lift them up. That's right. So this is essentially a reverse crunch. You can see how this motion is similar, and feet down. Good. Good. 20 more? What do you think?
Oh, at least 40.
With this exercise, we're really reversing the crunch, but now we're moving a bigger part of the body, so it's a much more difficult exercise. And the body reacts differently whether the crunch is moving the upper half of the body or the lower half of the body. So it makes a difference that this is the moving half of the muscle versus the hips being the moving half of the muscle. And so the body reacts differently. So we need to make these kinds of variations in our exercises. Let's see, what else do we have to do here? Oh, I know what else we have. Okay, we're going to have you lie on your stomach. Okay, we're going to do a specific exercise for the back now called the Superman. So for those of you that remember Superman flying across the metropolis, it's his arms out front. You're going to lift your feet off the floor and your arms off the floor, and you're going to hold it for 6 seconds. So now we've worked the legs, the low back and down. Let your legs and arms rest. And then we do it again. So you count to 10, and then you do 6 seconds, and you count to 6 again.
Do I get a cape and music?
We could probably find some, and down. Although not the fan, we'd have to have the wind blowing a lot. Okay, now that's the first level of exercise that you're doing this at. And the next one is called the swimmer. So with the swimmer, we're going to take the Superman. You're going to bring your arms and legs off the floor again, only now you're going to move your arms and legs up and down. Just up and down. Up and down will do fine. Alternating. So the arm, one arm and the opposite leg. Okay. Try this arm and leg together, and then this one. Yeah, there we go. Now do it just faster. Do it little kick like you were kicking a flutter kick. Good, and stop. And you can feel how much work the back has to do that exercise. It's a lot of work, and it's very different work than just the static Superman lifting. So I'm going to have you get up, Noah. That he's still the same. He hasn't injured himself. He's doing good. I'm going to have you just walk.
Right there.
Just walk over, walk back. There you go. Now I want you to think about going from your heel to your toe during your walking. Right. Now I want you to slow the walk down, as slow as you can think about doing walking. Now we start to see stability issues when he's walking that slow. Good. Okay, now I want you to not let your knees be straight any time. So they don't have to be very bent, but I don't ever want them. Right. And nice straight line, nice straight in front of you. Right. Silence. You'll notice there's no sound to his walking when he's walking this. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to speed that up a little bit, but keep that soft. Right. Go ahead, walk back. Okay, now let's let you look a little less like Groucho Marx. So not leaning back quite so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just so you don't have to bend your knees a lot, just a little. Right, there you go. Yeah. So try to feel a normal body posture. It's hard. It's hard to sort of get all. No, you're too low, too down. Yeah, there you go. That's better. One more change that we have to make your body look a little more natural, which is a little bit of abdominal right here. Just so you're slightly forward because you're leaning too far back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now unexaggerate it. There you go. And that's a very different walk than you were walking before. Does it feel different?
Mm-hmm.
Other than feeling like he's tied together. Okay.
We don't normally think about how you walk all that much.
Right. But it's worth thinking about because it really does change how the back posture is, and it gets back to that pelvic tilt that we were talking about before. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Jean.
And thank you very much, everybody. and it was really good to be able to share with you some of my experience with backs and how to take care of them. So what am I don't know. So we're gonna hopefully you're gonna keep on trying to exercise and keep moving and keep your back going in places. And we need to worry about when we're sitting too much, when we're standing too much. Doing lifting, we didn't talk about lifting and twisting motions. We have, just so many things that we do that are not good for the back, that just taking a little bit of time to take care of your back is really an important thing. So we need to make sure that the back, if we don't have the use of the back, then we really have problems in all sorts of other areas. And it's really hard to stay fit and keep on exercising if your back's in pain. And most of us will experience that at some point in time. So we need to make sure that back pain really doesn't run into lying in bed and doing nothing, which doesn't really help the back pain particularly. So if we're just doing absolutely nothing, most back pain will actually eventually go away. But we want to really make sure that we keep on stretching and keep on moving and really work to rebalance the back. And that's the best thing, and that's what this show was all about. So good night, and thank you very much, and hope to see you next time we're on. We'll do some more exercises. We'll do some other things.
This show is being sponsored in part by Precision Self-Storage. Need storage? Call Precision Self-Storage, 617-625-1000, located at 460 Somerville Avenue in Somerville, Massachusetts. 50% off first month's rent along with a free lock, 617-625-1000.